I think Lance is going to outperform Darnold. But that brings us to the Albert Breer, because Breer wrote this thing that the Niners have $190 million up against the cap for 2024. Is if they redo Bosa, you've got Bosa, Debo, Trent, Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Charvarius, Hargrave, McCaffrey, and maybe Ayuk. And he's basically talking about Trey Lance as a cap casualty almost. And then his quote from Breer: "A Lance trade, if he has a strong preseason this year, could create some breathing room. Having both Warner and Greenlaw as off-ball linebackers could be seen as a luxury, so maybe Greenlaw's another guy that could be offloaded." And then he says if CMC shows his age or gets hurt again, it's possibly he's on the chopping block. And then he threw Kyle Juszczyk out as possibly on the chopping block. But see, that one right there, I mean, if you want to get just a lot of people upset, imagine this, guys. We go to camp, we watch this thing, Trey's improved. He looks really improved. They decide to go with Purdy. If they trade Trey, at that point, I could see another team, if Trey plays well, coming to the Niners saying, hey, we'll trade for him.
Right. Matt
but
Mayoko
what kind of
right?
reaction would there be if Trey plays well and they part ways? I think there's a major dust up, pushback, whatever you want to describe it from the Niner fans. I know they'll be happy that they have, Brock and a good team and this and that, but I think there's enough people who have enough emotional investment in Trey Lance that if he plays well this preseason and they move on from him, I think they're opening up a can of worms that might not be a good thing. I think there's a lot of negativity directed towards Kyle and John, a lot of people questioning that, a lot of people really, just voicing displeasure with that. What do you think? Did you guys see the Breer article where he wrote that? What do you guys think of that? What do you think of the idea of Trey playing well and getting moved?
Jesse, I mean, it's possible. The thing is, with the quarterback position right now, quarterbacks' values are at an all-time low because every quarterback is healthy across the league. And every team is probably comfortable with their quarterback room. Once you get into training camp and a quarterback goes down, whether that's a starter or a backup, or maybe a backup doesn't play as well as you thought and you're not as sure in your starter, that's when the value starts to go up. So I could see a scenario where Trey's value climbs, but to me, it doesn't seem like the 49ers have enough conviction, or as Lynch would say, are convicted enough that they have their guy long term. They feel like Purdy's trending in that direction, it seems like. I don't think that they have enough conviction to just make that move. That's a ballsy move. You better know for a fact that Purdy is that guy, and to make that decision this early in his career, that would be a monumental mistake in my opinion. But, crazier things have happened.
It's a major dice roll, right? without any doubt. It's a major dice roll.
The dice roll is twofold, right? You better know Purdy's that guy, and you better know that Lance isn't, right?
Yeah.
Because if you move Lance, you're likely moving him for something that's well below market value. And if he's a guy you just traded a quarterback that you gave up a lot for a lot less, it would be a terrible value proposition. So business-wise, I can't see them doing that, right? They value winning the arrangement in terms of value so much that they held on to Jimmy Garoppolo forever so that they could get a third-round pick that they might not even get if he doesn't pass a physical. So I doubt that they would move Lance just simply because of that, unless they create the situation that you always talk about, Krug, right, where it's so hazy what the return is, and there's a player that's making them individually just a better team right now. It would have to be
Montez Sweat, something
it would have to be something like that.
Don't look over here. Look over here. Look at this shiny object.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and the other side of that equation of the Breer talk, let's say the Niners are hugged up and they are. I mean, they've got a lot of great players at the top end of the roster. And you know the way the cap works in the NFL. We can debate this, but in reality, if they want to kick the can down the road another year, they absolutely can. You know what I mean? If they want to keep every single one of those guys, they absolutely can. They probably have to restructure a couple guys. So it's not like, oh, they will have to trade a couple of these guys. But of those big time guys, and I'll throw the list again: Juice, Greenlaw, Lance, Ayuk, CMC, Hargrave, Mooney, Ward, Kittle, Warner, Armstead, Trent, Samuel, and Bosa. If you gotta say goodbye to two of those guys at the end of the year, who are you saying goodbye to?
Juice and Armstead, and it's not close.
Dude, that is exactly what I said. I said Juice and Armstead, and I, it wasn't a hard decision for me. Not that I don't think those guys are great. I think Armstead, in a lot of ways, is the emotional leader of the locker room, and Juice is right there with them. I mean, you know what I mean? These are very much leadership players, huge guys, but that would be my duo as well. Vish?
So I think Juice is the obvious one, right? I wasn't even a large proponent of re-signing him, not because he isn't an excellent player. He is an excellent player. It's just that he plays 46% of snaps on a given season. He doesn't play any monumental third downs just because of personnel issues. You rarely throw him the football, and he makes a lot of money. Now, of course, the team also likes having him because he brings good optics, right? He makes the Pro Bowl every year as the only fullback. He's the only fullback that makes the All-Pro team, and you can put Pro Bowl and All-Pro in front of him and market him. Also, he's great to the media. But I think that's one that they have an out on the contract. He to me is the most obvious one. The Armstead one, player for player, I think if we had to go through that list, that's probably the other one I would pick just because they signed Hargrave. I just don't see financially how they could make that decision unless they trade him. It's a big contract to stomach. The out on Armstead was this year. If I remember correctly, next year I think he incurs like a 17. Was the out not?
Because they kicked it down the road. I'm pretty sure it's next year. If they cut him post June, if they cut him post June, they save $18 million next year. They could have.
Okay, then.
Yeah. Because they kicked it down
mind.
the road.
Okay. I forgot. You're right. You are correct. I forgot that they restructured him this offseason. You're right. They kicked it down the road. But then the other two names I would actually throw, I think a lot of people put Debo in this conversation. I think Debo's contract makes him immediately immovable over the next 2 years at least. If we're talking about moving off of Debo, that's a 2024 conversation to me. The other two names are, and this is going to be unpopular, but it's George Kittle. You have an out on the contract. As good as he was last year, there's an injury history there where if Cameron Latu, a draft pick that Scott McClugan was very high on, if he has a strong season and George Kittle has another year where he's banged up, you can't be emotional about that decision. You have to go Bill Belichick, lawyer Malloy, Rodney Harrison there. And George Kittle's contract would allow that to be an opportunity. And then the other one is Christian McCaffrey. Look, I think Christian McCaffrey is the best skill player on the 49ers offense, but he's a running back. You don't know if you want to give him a second contract. He's already outvalued what they traded for him because they were basically able to recoup all the assets and compensatory picks. So really they lost a second round pick for him. The contract makes sense with him. He's the other one where just because of the age and attrition of the position, his cliff could be next year, right? Like last year could have been his last really great season. He might have hit the wall. Now, I don't want to say that, knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but it's a real conversation. So I would say those are the other two I would hover around the conversation. And then if we really want to start pushing it, maybe we can start some Trent Williams. Is he going to retire kind of talks? Because that would be the other scenario.
And that's worth noting. There's also the pushback that I've been getting when I brought this up in other streams. Hey, Armstead's in a mind of a lot of Niner fans is going to be a lifelong Niner. He's a NorCal guy. He's a Sacramento guy. He's a pillar of the community. He's reading to young children. He's, maybe he would rework his deal. You got to think of that as well. Who's willing to renegotiate, who's not.
Right.